I grew up in Eva, Alabama, which is a suburb of Decatur, Alabama. Alabama was completely segregated. We used separate entrances to go into the movie house. They were not allowed to sit downstairs with white people. They had to sit in the balcony by themselves. We had separate drinking fountains, had separate bathrooms. I would say 80% of the people in the town of Decatur were okay with it. The town of Eva, where I grew up, did not really realize what segregation was until we went into town, because my family was a sharecropping family, and all the other 12 families that sharecropped with us were black. So I felt like the outcast until I was 6 years old and went into town and saw that there were other white people. It was real hard for me because these people were people that I grew up with and were my friends. And to go into town with them and then not be able to sit with them and talk with them in a restaurant or anything else was kind of hard for both of us. I did not speak up a lot. My father did. My father was the commander of the VFW. VFW is short for Veterans of Foreign Wars. And in 1964, he put a motion before the Alabama Senate that the VFW and Decatur be integrated, black and white. 2 weeks later, we had a cross burned in our yard because we were black sympathizers. I asked Daddy, I said, "What's going on?" He said, "It's just a bunch of ignorant people." He said, "I'm going to talk to them." And the funny thing about that is, this was in Eva. And my daddy, being the type of person that he was, he walked out into the yard, and there's about 15 people standing around this cross that's burning in their white robes with their white headgear. And he walked up to the first guy, and he looked at him, and he said, "Harry, if your dad knew what you were doing, he would not be happy." And he walked, they're wearing hoods. And he walked next to us, and he said, "Jimbo, I'm going to see you at the gas station tomorrow, and we will take this out." And he named everybody in the circle. And so Jimbo asked him the next day, he said, "How did you know who we were?" He said, "You've only got one pair of shoes," because we were that poor. We only had one set of shoes. We wore all the time. My dad and I and my brother and my mother made the march from Selma to Montgomery with Dr. King. It was scary to the nth degree, because when we left Selma, there was a lot of Alabama state troopers guarding the bridge, and the first people that were locked in arm with Martin Luther King, they started from both sides with the clubs and just started beating people. I just couldn't figure out why is this happening? Why are we? And then I asked my dad, and I asked my mom, I said, "Why are we doing this? Why don't we get out of here? Why can't we leave? I don't want to be part of this." And mother's one that told me, said, "You're doing this because we have to." We weren't in the front row of the march with Dr. King, but we were there, and a few people back. But the beatings were continuous, and we slept on the side of the road. We slept in the ditches sometimes, or on the train tracks. And when we got to finally made it to Montgomery, we were out on the lawn at the Capitol building, and George Wallace, the governor, was there. And at that point, there was at least 30 people shot by the troopers for being on the Capitol lawn without permission of being there. I did. he knew my father because of the trouble my dad had got into in North Alabama. He was a man that loved talking to young people. He was. He just, if you were under the age of 14, 15 years old, you could walk up to him and pull on his pants leg, and he'd turn around and talk to you. He was just an awesome person. He really was. I think there is. I think there's a tremendous amount of discrimination today. Uh, and I also think, knowing Dr. King, he would be very unhappy with the discrimination today. Dr. King's philosophy at that time was, if you want change and you want to be better, you can't become like the people you're fighting against. You can't become mean. You can't become evil. You can't become ignorant. You've got to be educated. And so if he saw what was going on today, no, he would not be a happy person.